Hey, we're back here with Mr. Hayworth, and we're going to see how to put some finish on some things that are going to come into contact with food. That's quite a bit different than things you might have as, like, say, furniture in your house or cabinets or a fence outside or something like that. Here we need to be concerned about what this will do in our stomachs, potentially. So we have two products, actually three products that I'm going to be showing you today. And I have two items that I'm going to be showing you how that finish goes on to. First of which is a cutting board. This cutting board isn't glued together, but that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's a glued together cutting board or not. This is just one board. It's actually a really pretty piece of wood that we got from Costa Rica. But this particular board, we use it a lot. I've sanded it, but you can see there's still a whole lot of scratches and stuff in here from the knives, but that's not what I'm trying to get out. I'm just trying to smooth off that top surface a little bit. The other thing, this is a piece of olive, and it's a spatula, and it works really well. I made this really quickly on the bandsaw years ago. Bandsaw and sander, something I would encourage students to make. Quite a handy little tool, and it's pretty and it works well. So we're gonna actually be applying finish to these. They've already had finish on them though, so we're actually reapplying finish, after they've been in use for some time. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna be putting some mineral oil on here. So this is mineral oil. Mineral oil, this is kind of weird. Mineral oil is a very natural kind of product, but you can see it's actually used as a laxative, among many other things, I assure you. But if you ever do need to get some mineral oil, you can go to a pharmacy and it's in there with the laxatives and stuff. So it feels a little weird when you buy a lot of this. If you have a lot of, say, cutting boards to finish, you end up buying a gallon of this and the person looks at you like you're having problems. But so here we have a cutting board. I want to put a finish on here that is going to really keep the wood looking good but also lasting well. I want it to be able to repel a lot of moisture and stuff. So mineral oil works well for that because you can eat mineral oil. I would strongly encourage you to never use something like vegetable oil or olive oil or something like that, because those can go rancid. So anyway, this mineral oil is the easiest thing in the world to apply. I'm going to be using a cheapo little throwaway paintbrush. This is like a 69-cent paintbrush or something. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mineral oil and I'm just going to pour it on here. One of the reasons, by the way, that we're using a mineral oil or any one of these food safe finishes is it doesn't form a film on the surface. And the reason why that's important is if you were chopping on here, then as you are chopping, you're going to be cutting up that finish, and that's going to end up in your food and you're going to eat it. So we don't really want to do that. So a food safe finish, it's a good idea not to use something that is film forming. So I'm just going to pour this in. This is where the magic happens because it starts soaking into the wood. You can see I put a bunch of it on there and it's kind of running around here and there, but it just really starts making the wood look beautiful. And so brush it around. This wood will, I like to say, it drinks this finish. So it's just going to soak it in and soak it in and soak it in. And I want it to soak in as much as it can because it doesn't last forever. It may only last a couple months. And then it starts looking like it did. It looks a little worn out. You can give it a quick little sanding just to scrub it really well. And then you can put some new finish on. So there's the finished product right there. I'm going to let it sit and soak. I might come back and put a little bit more on, But in the end, I'm going to take an old t-shirt or an old rag, whatever, and I'm going to wipe this down really good. It'll be a little bit oily for a couple days, and that's okay. We want it to really absorb all of that oil so it stays looking really good and can last a long time. So there's mineral oil on a cutting board. Okay, so here's our next little project here. This is our spatula, our wooden spatula. As I said before, it's made out of olive. It's kind of thin, got a nice little shape to it. Works really well for in like a frying pan, stuff like that. Great for making eggs. So I'm going to be using a different product here, and this is called walnut oil. Now, I did say just a moment ago, don't use a vegetable base, but this is a heat treated and filtered oil, so it's like it cooks the oil and then that prevents it from going rancid later. One of the things that you just want to make sure that you're looking for is that whatever finish you use, if it's going to come into contact with food, that it is labeled as being food safe, that says food safe and completely natural, and they have some application directions on here. It's just in a little squeeze bottle, so I'm going to take that red cap off there, and super simple. This is a lot like using mineral oil. I've already sanded it some, and I'm just going to put this stuff on. And you can see I got a little bit on my workbench. I'm not really worried about that. But I'm going to take just a rag here, and I'm going to rub this stuff in. The one thing that's a little bit different about this walnut oil is it absorbs into the wood, and then it kind of hardens, so it sticks around a little bit longer. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't form a film on the surface. It hardens in the wood. My gosh, that's pretty. So it forms a hardened surface in the wood, and that'll last a little bit longer, but it doesn't form that layer on top of the wood that could end up chipping off into our food and stuff. So we don't want that kind of thing. So we continue putting this on, and this stuff actually has to dry. So I'm going to put a little bit more on there, and I'm going to let this dry for a day, maybe two. Just set it off to the side, let that dry, and then I'll probably reapply. Put another coat on, and then maybe another, who knows. If it keeps taking the oil, keep adding the oil. Let it take up all it can, so then maybe it'll form a lasting finish on there. Okay, that's it for using walnut oil. Here's the last of the food safe products that I wanted to point out. There are others out there, by the way. There's some that are called like salad bowl oil and salad bowl finishes and things like that. And basically what they are is they're pretty much like that walnut oil. But this is beeswax. So this is the wax that bees make, and you can take this and you can actually heat it up in a pot on the stove. You can make like a little double boiler setup. You could also mix it with some alcohol to help dissolve this, like a food safe alcohol. And then you can rub that onto wooden utensils and stuff, and that will actually preserve the wood in there a little bit. Still, food safe finishes, we don't want to make any kind of film on them, so this of course doesn't form a film. It doesn't last very long. It's something that you need to reapply, but it again is a food safe product. I actually keep this in the garage for an entirely different reason. A lot of times if you're putting screws into wood and it's really hard, maybe you have a very hard piece of wood and it's hard to put the screws in, you can drag that screw over the wax and get just a touch of wax on the screws, and they go in so much easier. So it works really well for that. Or if you have, say, a drawer slide or something that is sticking, it's hard to push the drawer in, rub a little wax on it and it'll be like new. Anyway, that's it with food safe materials. If you're making something with wood that's going to be used in the kitchen, that's a great way to go.